Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the DLF Trade Show, the humongously mega awesome trade show on the DLF YouTube stream. We are days after the NFL draft has happened, but you know what? We're not here to talk about draft picks. No. We don't talk about draft picks. No. I say we like I came up with this. I'm like, hey, Addison, we should talk about draft picks. And then I sit down and open the sheet and I'm like, Addison, there's no draft picks on the sheet. So we are apparently going to be talking about things that happened during the draft, but not actual draft picks. I see the wheels moving, everyone. I feel it. I sense it. You probably figured it out by now. We're talking about the trades that happened in the first round where AJ Brown got traded to the Eagles, Hollywood Brown got traded to the Cardinals, and then we're going to talk about Rashod Bateman's value after losing Hollywood as a receiver mate, a mated receiver. First, we're going to talk about AJ Brown because that's who's first on the list that Addison gave me. 12-team Superflex, tight and premium. AJ Brown, Bryan Edwards in the 412 for Stefon Diggs, Zach Ertz, Allen Lazard, and Jamison Crowder. AJ Brown comes in at 623.6, and his side total is 650.4. Stefon Diggs, 399.7. Zach Ertz, I feel like 55.1 is a little low. And that side total is 484.5. AJ Brown for Stefon Diggs and Zach Ertz.
Lazard and Crowder has a little bit of respect. Lazard's the wide receiver one in Green Bay. Yeah, you're
okay. Right. This is, I think Diggs and Ertz should be higher. Gotta be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if the next 2 years Diggs and AJ Brown score insanely evenly. Mm-hmm. If you're worried about age, like if you wanted to get younger, I get the move. I'm also of the train of thought that Ertz will be fine this year, even though they drafted McBride. I love it for McBride because he'll get to sit for a year and learn behind Zach Ertz, and then he'll probably take the job that the next year, the year after. Mm-hmm. But right now, give me the extra asset. Give me the guy I think I can put in my starting lineup in a premium league. So I get it. AJ Brown, at least 4 years younger. AJ Brown, half the ADP, more. AJ Brown has the ADP of 19.25. Stefon Diggs, 48.25. So there's some difference. So there does deserve to be value difference. I don't know if I put it at 225 point difference. Like that's solid. That's like late first probably. So yeah, I get it. I like AJ Brown in Philadelphia. I like that he's not alone anymore. We liked Corey Davis. We liked Julio 15 years ago, but he never really had anyone else on the field that was a receiving threat. Now he's part of an offense. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, volume is going to be a bit of an issue. Tannehill's a better passer than Hurts is. I had to take away the probably, but I think the offense in general will be better, with Hurts being able to run and the running backs not being bad. I mean, Miles Sanders is what he is, and maybe Kenneth Gainwell turns into something, but the play action will still be there. The play action will still work, which is what AJ Brown makes his money at. Well, the Titans passing game made their money on. And they're going to run some RPOs, which means people are going to, the defensive front at least will be scrambling and hopefully leave AJ Brown a little open. So is it a downgrade? Probably, because there's a couple of other people there, but I think the offense in Philly gets so much better that I'm not dropping him much, if really at all. And I haven't really honestly put it all together yet. But all of that being said, give me Diggs and Ertz because I think the production for the next 2 years will be fine. If you are doing this in terms of a pure value standpoint, the answer is AJ Brown. Diggs can be the wide receiver one, and his value will go down next year because he will be 29. It's just the unfortunate reality of Dynasty. So, but I still think production-wise, 2 years, you're going to be fine with Diggs, most likely, maybe with Ertz. But yeah, give me the extra pieces. And like you said, circumstances can make Lazard and Crowder not trash.
Yeah. This one, to me, seems like somebody who had AJ Brown and doesn't like that he went to Philadelphia. Like, this was somebody who's like, I still need production out of somebody who I thought could have top 5 wide receiver fantasy upside that apparently he thinks no longer has that in Philadelphia. So he went to go get older with Stephon Diggs and then adding all the other pieces like Zach Ertz, who was like a top 5 tight end last year. Alan Lazard, whatever the upside is with him, if he actually is Rodgers' wide receiver 1 for maybe however long Christian Watson needs to get into it, or if you are like me and don't like Christian Watson, then Lazard might actually be the wide receiver 1 for like the entire year. Crowder is interesting in the Bills offense. We had weeks last year where we were starting Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley was kind of startable for the most part last year as well. So you get flex weeks and bye weeks out of Jamison Crowder. That's not like useless. To me, I see the AJ Brown trade as lateral. Yeah. But to me, what that actually ended up happening is I think that I'm kind of above market value on AJ Brown because what I think ended up happening was I already had AJ Brown as a fringe top 10 dynasty wide receiver in Tennessee, where his market value was top 5. He was like the next guy after Chase, Jefferson, and Lamb were kind of the consensus top 3. Then it's like, what do we do after this? Is AJ Brown. So now that he's in Philly, I feel like people have dropped him down to where I already had him or below where I have him, making him kind of a player that I'm interested in and targeting. His value certainly is going to go down. His ADP is going to drop from here, meaning that his trade analyzer value is going to go down as well once we get ADP here in probably like a week. But I don't view it as a bad move, honestly. Like you said, I think the offense is going to get better. I think the volume, if anything, kind of stays the same. We've seen that AJ Brown has put up 2 1,000-yard seasons on under 110 targets. So, like, he's just an efficient wide receiver, and it's really just for him, I think, just staying on the field and being healthy.
Always.
As long as he plays 14-plus games, I think you're going to be really happy with what you get out of him in Philadelphia, even with Jalen Hurts and with Devonta Smith and with Dallas Goedert and all that stuff. I'm still in on AJ Brown. With that said, I think I still do take Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
But if I'm rebuilding, I'll take AJ Brown. I'll just trade all that stuff for AJ and we'll be good.
Let's move on to the next trade, which is kind of funny because this is very similar to what happened in the real NFL. 12-team Superflex League. Someone traded AJ Brown for the 103 and Elijah Mitchell. So this can pretty much be the equivalent of Treylon Burks and a little bit to go get AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm. That's why I liked it. That's why I know the reason why I picked it.
Okay, completely unrelated. Are you worried anything about Elijah Mitchell that they grabbed? Oh man, hyphenated last name that I feel bad I can't remember off the top of my head. In the
Tyrion Davis Price.
Thank you. In like the 3rd, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm not worried. Okay. He's a better Trey Sermon. Which honestly isn't that hard to do, but
yeah. I was trying to find a nice way to say it.
Like literally, like if you look at their profiles, like athletically, they're like the same size. It's just Davis Price ran like 0.2 of a faster 40-yard dash. Like he was like, a 4.4 guy, and Sermon was a 4.6 guy.
Yeah, so like this is just the next Jeff Wilson. It feels like.
Yeah, basically. It just feels like it's more like they needed to replace Raheem Mostert, I think. Yeah. And they just decided that they wanted to draft Tyrion Davis Price. I don't think that has any effect on Elijah Mitchell at all whatsoever.
I agree. I just wanted someone smarter than me to say it. Though I did listen to the DLF flagship podcast, and I'm pretty sure Ryan said it already. So now I have 2 smart people who said it.
There you go.
So let's get back to the actual trade itself. 12-team Superflex, AJ Brown, 643.6. The other side, 103 is 498.6. Elijah Mitchell, 179.7. Total, 678.3. Insanely even. I want AJ Brown.
Oh, okay.
Because hear me out. In like I said before, this pretty much is in Superflex leagues. I have 4 rookie drafts that have started because I love my sanity and spread mine out because I run almost every league I'm in. So the top 3 picks, Breece Hall's going to go on. The next bunch of picks is going to be a mixture of Kenneth Walker, Burks, London, Wilson. Sometimes you'll see something crazy where someone goes, Sky Moore landed in Kansas City, I'm going to go take him early.
Or Christian Watson.
Haven't seen him go that early yet.
I've seen him consistently top 8 or 9.
Yeah, but
he's in that group
8 or 9. Like I haven't seen him go top 5 yet, which very well can change every day, right? You know, we are.
Well, then you also throw in Olave, and then where does Kenny Pickett slide in Superflex? You know, that whole like group after Breece Hall is so inconsistent.
Yeah, exactly. And so really this comes down to, will you trade AJ Brown for probably your choice at wide receiver besides the one that gets taken at 102, or maybe your choice at wide receiver if someone goes, I don't want to say Kenneth Walker. If someone goes Kenny Gainwell at 2, you got some issues with your league. Kenneth Gainwell at 2, and then your choice at wide receiver, if you feel strongly about Kenny Pickett, he will be there at 3. So there's a lot of options with this pick, but AJ Brown is AJ Brown. The 103 could be anything. It could even be AJ Brown. Like, and it was really funny that they used that pick to get Treylon Burks. And it was just the amount of that meme I saw on the internet made me so happy. If you've listened to the show before, you know I'm not the biggest on Elijah Mitchell. He will be usable 1000%. You will be able to put him in your lineups if he's healthy. He has not gotten replaced by anything that is on that roster right now. But why take the risk of that wide receiver? They all landed in great spots. Don't get me wrong. You know, Tennessee, Atlanta. I still think the Jets is a great landing spot because they've shown they want weapons everywhere. And I'm a big Garrett Wilson fan, so I'm cool with that. And then even going further back, the Olave on the Saints, even Dotson, even though you should not be drafting him at the 3. In Washington, there's no one like him on that team. Like, everyone landed in a good spot. But we know AJ Brown is AJ Brown already. Why are we taking the risk with just Elijah Mitchell that we might get AJ Brown?
So I have to convince you why I'm taking the 103. So I believe in Elijah Mitchell, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that you get very solid high-end RB2 fantasy production out of him. If not, maybe low end if he gets, you know, touchdowns and whatnot. It could be a Josh Jacobs, Antonio Gibson kind of person without the receiving. So I see that in Elijah Mitchell. Again, it's also about him also staying on the field because he missed like a handful of games last year. The 1.03, while I get the argument of, you know, this wide receiver could be anything. It could even be AJ Brown. That risk to me, even in this class, is, you know, I just believe that somebody is going to come out, if not one person, maybe 2, maybe even 3, are going to come out as like solid wide receiver 2 values in Dynasty, you know, for the next couple of years, meaning that they might not have the production, but at least I'm going to be able to do something with them. Like, I don't see them flaming out like Jalen Reagor. I'm sure somebody will, but I don't really see like that necessarily happening, because next year we're going to talk ourselves into, well, Drake London, the Atlanta Falcons have the 101. So that means they're getting Bryce Young or CJ Stroud up for Drake London. Garrett Wilson, you know, we're giving Zach Wilson another year as well. He had to flesh things out with Elijah Moore, and it was his rookie year. We're still on Garrett Wilson. You can do the same for Treylon Burks, who I think probably has the best opportunity in year 1 as basically the only wide receiver in Tennessee outside of a now coming off of an injured end of season, about to turn like 30, Robert Woods. So, you know, Burks could realistically have like the same volume as AJ Brown.
Yeah.
In year 1 in 2022. You could also, maybe something happens with Olave. Maybe we get psyched up about Jameson Williams because the Lions are similar to the Falcons. They get the 102, and so they're, getting their quarterback as well. There's a lot of different avenues for all those top 5 wide receivers, to where I think that even if I don't get the production, I'm getting the value. So I could do something with that later on down the road. Whereas I see AJ Brown dipping in value right now, that I'm okay selling that for the 103 and Elijah Mitchell, where I'm still getting production out of Mitchell than whatever happens out of the rookie. Maybe I even look out and I don't even need to replace the wide receiver, and I just take Kenneth Walker, who's my 102. So maybe you get 2 really good running backs or something like that. But I feel like the flexibility in 1.03 with Elijah Mitchell lends me to taking that side over AJ Brown.
Let's move on to Hollywood Brown. Hollywood. Let's go. 12 team, 1 quarterback. Marquise Brown and the 203 for J.K. Dobbins. Interesting. Marquise Brown, 257.4, the 203, 158.4 for a total of 415.9. J.K. Dobbins, a very respectable 566.8. So clearly in favor of J.K. Dobbins. The 203 loses some value being in 1 quarterback. I find myself loving the second round, but really more in a dart throw manner.
Yeah, like they shouldn't really actually be second rounders, but they are in this class.
Yeah, like this is, like a lot of the running backs that we're taking in the second, like feel like they should be in the third. There's a couple of wide receivers that have been falling, like David Bell in the second, like the mid-late second, where I've seen it is so weird, but I get it when I look at the drafts. So the 203 has a bit of value to me because I still think at most we're talking 3 quarterbacks in the top 15 in super flex leagues anyway, at maybe.
Oof, I don't even know if you might just get Pickett.
Yeah, for what I have seen, which is 4, 3 of them, Malik and Ritter, went around the 201 to like the 205.
What?
Both of them.
Oh my.
And one of them doesn't count because one dude literally just was on a complete, like blew up his team after the season and had all of these picks. So literally just took quarterbacks every pick he had. So like Pickett and Willis went 3 and 4.
Oh my gosh.
That's wrong. Don't do.
Sorry
if you're listening, but just don't do what that guy did. So really, what do you think of Hollywood Brown in Arizona? And what do you think of J.K. Dobbins maybe being healthy? Is really comes into play with this a lot. The answer to me, I think, should be J.K. Dobbins. I think if you were to right now say, I want to trade this piece for something else, I think you could do better on moving Dobbins than you can moving Hollywood Brown, because I think you need to find more of a believer in Hollywood Brown than you do in Dobbins.
Right.
Because pure value-wise, Dobbins is higher. Running back is a very weird position. And Hollywood is either people aren't the biggest fans of him and think he's streaky, or he falls into that replacement level-ish. I, on the other hand, am super psyched to see him go back with Kyler and ask to go to Kyler, get what he wants, and now has 6 games without DeAndre Hopkins there because suspension.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the idea of Hollywood Brown, but at this price, I still say give me Dobbins.
Yeah, that's basically where I fell as well. Like, I'm also very excited for Hollywood with the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm even more now from the Hopkins suspension for Hollywood. I was already kind of like talking myself into it because when I looked at it, like, did you know that Christian Kirk and Hollywood Brown like were separated by only like 20 fantasy points last year?
I did not know that, but Kirk's was also super streakily earned.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a sentence. Yeah.
But yeah. So I think Hollywood was like the wide receiver 27 and Kirk was like the 29 or something like that. Like they were both like within 25 to 30. Only separated by 20 PPR fantasy points. So that was pretty interesting to me. And that was with Hollywood having like 50 more targets than Christian Kirk did, 40 to 50.
And a bunch of them being Tyler Huntley targets. Let's just put the full story out there.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for Hollywood just to come in and have the opportunity to be in a more efficient, higher volume passing offense with his college QB, who practically made him a first round pick. Um, and like you said, 6 games without DeAndre Hopkins to do so and get that chemistry back and get that thing going. So then when Hopkins does come back, Kyler and Hollywood are already on that same wavelength. So I really do like that. With that said, I'm taking J.K. Dobbins because I was listening to the DLF podcast where they did a 1 quarterback mock draft.
Yep.
And they got to like the 111 and it was like, I don't know what to do from here. Yeah. Like they literally drafted James Cook at the 112 because they were like, who else do I take? Like all the first and second round, like good wide receivers that you want are all gone. The running backs are gone. You're not taking a quarterback there. So you're taking a round 3 running back in like, Cook or Spiller or Rashod White, or you're taking David Bell or Wan'Dale Robinson or John Mechie, or any Alec Pierce, any of these other like day 2 players, but you don't like any of that. That was at the 112. So that's 4 picks later is the 2.03. I don't see how you're comfortable with that pick at all, to where I'm going to take J.K. Dobbins because like you said, I feel like it's going to be easier to move Dobbins. You might not like Dobbins, but you like the fact that you can get an RB2 versus a wide receiver that also, like you said, probably a vast majority of players see as streaky or inconsistent or replacement level wide receiver that you could just get kind of almost anywhere else.
Yes, sir. Next trade. I forgot what the settings were, but it's the same 12-team, 1 quarterback. Marquise Brown and Gabe Davis for Chris Godwin, Kadarius Toney, and a 23 fourth. Caution, Team B is giving up the highest value asset and the most pieces in this deal. Like, I think they put in the 23 fourth just to get that little warning. Like, that's... So, Marquise Brown, 257.4. Gabe Davis, 123.7 for a total of 381.1. Chris Godwin, 486. Toney, 127. The 23 fourth, 17.5. You will notice very quickly, I don't need to say the total was 630.4 because the total of 381.1 is less than Chris Godwin's total.
For now.
This is some straight Chris Godwin disrespect. And this is someone who, this is the right thing to do because you have to add feel to these numbers, right? If you feel Hollywood moved up in rankings, 257.4 isn't the right number anymore. If you think Gabe Davis is going to be a solid wide receiver too, because all they did was bring in Jameson Crowder and blanking on the name, was
Khalil
it Shakir?
How could you?
And maybe you think Gabe Davis is, I know, like I just heard Matt Price like gushing over him. Like if you think Gabe Davis walks in and isn't the 100 something yards and 4 touchdowns guy, but if you think he's their wide receiver too, you bump up that a little bit. And you're upset that Chris Godwin is 26 and hurt. And Toney got a real message sent when they drafted Wan'Dale Robinson in the second. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going into this specific trade. I think I keep Chris Godwin. Like I take Chris Godwin in this. It's not really that difficult. I think Gabe Davis is probably a wide receiver 3 in fantasy, and you'll get those spike weeks because we've seen he's capable of very, very high scoring. But Chris Godwin's just so good. He's attached to Brady for as long as Brady feels like playing. Kadarius Toney, I get it. Weird things are going on. He'll land somewhere, and if he lands somewhere creative, he can be fantasy relevant. Will he be? It's a dart throw. But honestly, at the cost of losing Gabe Davis, who I call a wide receiver 3 anyway, I'll take the shot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a fourth there.
I'm totally in with. I would just trade Hollywood and Gabe Davis for Godwin.
Yes.
And then you get the throw-in of Kadarius Toney,
exactly.
Just to see what happens. Like I don't even think he needs to go to an offense that needs to be creative with him. Like he could just go somewhere and just get the ball, Like he doesn't need to be utilized like Deebo Samuel. Somebody could just utilize him like Jalen Waddle, or just utilize him like how he was being utilized on the Giants last year, where he had like 8 to 10 targets in a stretch of games, Like you want that from anybody. So I'll take that from Kadarius Toney if he could just go somewhere. He can get that in Chicago and, be totally good.
That sounds like fun.
Gabe Davis is super weird, dude. There are like hardcore fanatics out there of Gabe Davis. And it's really weird considering the fact that he's like literally a younger version of Will Fuller. Just like the reason why he hasn't produced is because he hasn't been able to beat Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, and not because he gets injured all the time. But like, for some reason, we just love a dude who's entering his third year, never had over 600 receiving yards, and like
third year breakout, baby.
He's attached to Josh Allen. And I mean, I get all that, but it seems so weird. I don't understand like where these people come from with Gabe Davis, who was also a day 3 pick.
Yep.
Like it's really weird. So to be able to capitalize on that, and Hollywood being traded to the Cardinals, which, like I said, I do really like, but just it's Chris Godwin. Like, we've seen top 5 upside multiple times from him, and he gets Tom Brady back for another year, even if, if he misses a couple games at the beginning because of the ACL injury or whatnot. But, it's still Chris Godwin. Just take Chris Godwin. Just take the known asset and just be happy,
Yep.
It's not that hard sometimes. Dynasty's not hard. People make it harder than it needs to be.
Got to be fun somehow. If it's not fun on its own, you got to make it fun.
I guess so. Yeah, just trade Godwin for Gabe Davis in Hollywood, and there
you go. Fun. Speaking of fun, Rashod Bateman now being the lone wide receiver on a team besides Devin Duvernay, James Prochet.
Oh, don't you forget the other player. This is hardcore disrespect right here. Oh, come on, Russ. Tylan Wallace. Oh, dude, he has Clemson big wide receiver energy all over him, and I'm surprised that you're not on him, even though he went to Oklahoma State. He's just got that energy, Yeah, he could be T. Higgins in this offense. I love it. Good suggestion.
I'll fight you. Okay, Rashod Bateman, 10-team, 1 quarterback. Rashod Bateman and the 305 for Antonio Gibson. Ooh. Bateman, 281.6, the 305, 67.7 for a total of 349.3. Antonio Gibson, 540.1. Are you, let's double shot this right away. Clearly, by your reaction when we first mentioned his name, you are in on Rashod Bateman being the wide receiver one there, and at the moment the only real wide receiver. How are you feeling about Antonio Gibson with the Commanders? I don't like saying that. The Washington football team bringing in, who did they bring in? Brian Robinson. My brain is fried with these names. Oh man. So they're not the same running back, him and Gibson, but it's another player. They took McKissick back after he almost went to Buffalo. Would you actually give up Bateman to go get Gibson?
I think I would in this scenario, because you're only adding a third, but I don't like it. Like, I'm totally on board with trading off Antonio Gibson. We're running through like a massive update of the Dynasty draft guide right now. And I did the entire article for post-draft winners and losers. And I highlighted Antonio Gibson as a loser because of them drafting Brian Robinson. And you might say, well, it was Brian Robinson. He's going to back up Antonio Gibson. Ron Rivera said that one of the biggest things that they love about Brian Robinson is that he does not put the ball on the ground. And if you know anything about Antonio Gibson last year, he had 6 fumbles. 4 of them were lost. Both of them were most among all running backs in the league last year. Dude fumbled 6 times in like 15 games. And one of the key points when Ron Rivera was asked why they drafted Brian Robinson was because he said that he could do a lot of other things that Antonio Gibson and McKissick can't, because he's a different kind of running back. Yes. And he's very secure with the ball. Like, he highlighted that very specifically. So I'm not saying that Robinson was drafted to replace Antonio Gibson. I think it is interesting that they both have the same draft capital because they were both 3rd-round picks. So there is that. And it's just we kind of have to get off of Antonio Gibson being the next Christian McCaffrey and just realize what he is. And I'm honestly a little scared that this is a three-headed committee. Like we saw Ron Rivera utilize Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. They were already splitting before, but he continued doing that. Like he didn't pick a guy. And then that might happen again here. And JD McKissic is really good as a pass catching specialist. So
yep.
I am terrified of Antonio Gibson.
Yep.
And I'm totally willing to move off of him. I just don't know if Bateman and a mid third is enough capitalization on the value right now. Maybe it is, and I'm not sure, but it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. The problem is I agree with literally everything you said about Gibson, which just makes me want to get off. So if you can tell me I'll get Bateman, it seems like equal risk but higher reward with Bateman because it's hard. Short of like injury, let's say, in the Washington backfield, Gibson isn't going to escape this as a workhorse.
No.
Even if Baltimore, this isn't even an if, when Baltimore starts to run the ball more because they'll have an actual running back on their team, they're going to start passing less. So Bateman might not get the targets that the wide receiver one on the team got last year, but I still think the ceiling is better for that wide receiver than it is for Antonio Gibson. So while you're right, I don't think the value fits. I still don't hate it anyway. Would I want more? Yeah, I could change that 3 into a 2, and I would say yes right away.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Antonio Gibson
a decent dart throw with the 205, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, or whatever that veteran equivalent is as well.
Yeah,
I'm exactly good there. I think that Gibson just comes with that name cachet. Like he still has. He is Antonio Gibson. But if you look at his profile and kind of like what the team is telling us about Gibson,
it's not great.
Like, is he really all that different from Damian Harris?
Yes. For Damian Harris, yes.
Elijah
I'm trying to think
Mitchell?
of a better name, but I'm blanking at the moment also.
Elijah Mitchell? Like, we're in the back end of the RB2. Like, Mitchell's RB23 in April ADP. Damian Harris is 32. Gibson is RB11.
That's way too high.
Yeah.
That's way too high.
Like, if we just reel back in his name value and just look at him for what he's actually doing and what is actually happening with him, we have him down here as like a borderline RB2, which if that's the case, I mean, we're basically already in borderline wide receiver 2 territory as well, because Elijah Mitchell is right next to Juju and Cortland Sutton and Chris Olave. And Bateman's not that far behind already. So if you bump Bateman up to Juju Smith-Schuster level as like wide receiver 27, you're there with Elijah Mitchell.
Wow. Some of the running backs below Antonio Gibson is just like...
like Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Or Nick Chubb.
Cam
or Alvin
Akers.
Kamara. I would take J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
For sure.
This is crazy. But let's move on because we're not here to talk about Gibson. The next trade is 12-team Superflex, where Bateman was traded straight up for a 23 first. Bateman 171.7 in 12-team Superflex, and the random 23 first 384.2. I mean, you're the Bateman guy, so let me ask you, which side?
I'll take the 23 first, sadly, because while I really love Bateman and he was my wide receiver 2 last year, I feel like there's probably a couple Rashod Batemans in next year's class that you would have the opportunity to get. That like after Jackson Smith and Jigba, after Jordan Addison, I bet you there's probably another couple of them that are on the Bateman level that would basically just, replace what you were getting from Rashod Bateman.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you with the Bateman love, and I'm also with you the fact that the 23 first is worth more. The 23 first is more versatile as a trade chip. The 23 first will keep gaining value where we hope Bateman will keep gaining value. And if you plan to use that pick, most of that first round will be probably worth more than Bateman next year, even if Bateman has a good year this year.
Right. Where would you slot Bateman in among the rookies this year?
Oh, that's rough. Probably in that second mega tier. Like I still have Burks, Wilson, and London above him.
Mm-hmm.
But then throw him in with Olave and
Williams and
Watson, Williams.
So you're right there in this is a super flex league. So right there, you're probably at like 105, 6, 7. You're like right in the mid first for Rashod Bateman with where you would take him, which and with that logic, I think that's totally fine with flipping for a 2023 first as well.
Because I have seen multiple 107s for a 23 first.
Mm-hmm.
Well, multiple leagues where the 107 was traded for a 23 first. Very poorly worded sentence.
Yeah.
You should be used to that for me by now, everyone. Just let me get away with it. Stop making me correct myself. All right, it's time. I'm ready for what you did. Let's go. Horrible trades, 12 team, Superflex, AJ Brown for the 108 and the 201. Why? Okay, so here's the thing. This is the exact same conversation we had before, except we're in the back end of that tier we were just talking about. In the 108, we're talking Olave, Jameis. I call him Jameson because saying Williams to me just means like it could be anyone. You know, Jameson, Sky Moore, like
Dawson, Watson, yeah.
I mean, I put Olave at the top of that list that I just read out. Maybe not Jameson, besides the point. But man, like, okay, real quick. AJ Brown, 643.6. The 108, 287.3. The 201, 187.8. Total 475.1. I just don't get it. Like, unless this was on the clock and some weird thing fell, but even still, we're talking outside of those top 5 that we were talking about before. Well, top 3 or 4 wide receivers, even. And the 201, which, like, we're probably still talking James Cook.
Yeah, the 201 in Superflex is the 112 and 1 QB because Kenny Pickett's the only quarterback going. So it's the same thing. Yeah. This is like I highlighted this because I was like, this trade doesn't look horrible on the surface, right? And a lot of people might be like, oh, yeah, I'm cashing out for a first in the 2.01. Probably in most classes, that's not like a terrible thing. But in this class, you know, like that's not great. And whatever you believe with AJ Brown, whatever you believe he is going to be with the Philadelphia Eagles, or what he's not going to be, and you want to trade off of him, this is not the way to trade off. And this is just something that I wanted to showcase as, you know, whatever you think AJ Brown is or is not like this. Not like this. Don't do this. It might not look horrible on the surface, but it actually is. Don't do this. Not like this.
Yeah, and especially since you're at this point of the show, hopefully you listened to or watched the entire thing. It was a pretty decent conversation with Elijah Mitchell. Okay, chances are he's worth more than a 201. How much more?
For sure. He's probably a mid-ish first.
See, I would put him around the 108 at best.
Okay. That's his floor, I think. Depending on who you talk to, it bumps up from there.
But okay, regardless. So we're talking the 103 and like the 108 when this is the 108 and the 201 on that last trade. And I still chose AJ Brown, even though you did a very good job of convincing me the other side. This is way too low. This is, even if you love Olave, Pickens, who I feel bad I left out of every single list every time I listed that second tier before, you got to find a different way to get it. Like that, this isn't right. This isn't how you do it. Not like this.
Not like this.
Whew, on that very weird note, this has been the DLF Trade Show. We are here on the DLF YouTube channel where everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. DLF Dynasty Trade Show with Russ and Addison.
That was just, then the way that you just edited, you just went.